interface or DDL compiler. Obtain the command from any one of these parts and process them further. How it process? It will convert that logical view of that command into physical format. As I told you, to store a roll number, we have specified 3 spaces. So we can execute the command to create the table. So that command will be given to DDL compiler. It will convert that command and pass it on to data manager. Have a look. Command for creating an object is issued. It is given to telecom system. It will pass to DDL compiler. DDL compiler will compile the command and transfer it to data manager. Now the function of data manager is to convert that logical definition into physical file. That means user is asking to create a column called roll number that will be executed by the user through DDL compiler and will be given to data manager, and data manager will allocate the space required for that command executed by the user. So data manager will execute the logical view into physical storage medium. The data manager is also responsible for interfacing with the file system. In addition, the tasks of enforcing constraints to maintain the consistency and integrity of the data as well as security are also performed by the data manager. Basic function of data manager is get the command from the user via DDL compiler, query processor or compiled user interface and convert that logical format of command into physical file system. This is the basic function. Second function that data manager has to perform is enforcing constraints. Simple way, tell me one thing, what data we are creating in our database, or what is the data that we are storing in our database, from where that data comes. The data comes from the real world. As I told you, student information, we said there are 100 students. So 100 students information, we are actually taking it from the real world. There is a class who actually has 100 students. So we are taking that information from the real world and we are saving it in the database. So in real world, there are some rules which are automatically get applied. Like no 2 users or no 2 students will have same roll number. No 2 members or no 2 persons can have same telephone numbers or same mobile numbers. Members belonging to different families. Suppose there is one X and second Y. And we call one number and the phone is getting connected to X as well as Y. This is not possible now. So these are the rules which we follow in our real world. Those rules we want to maintain in our database. So applying the real life rules into database is achieved using constraints. So applying the constraints on the data will be the second function of data manager. You will get the concept of constraints clear in the coming lectures. For now, you should simply remember that whatever data we are saving in the database, it is actually coming from real world, and real world data follows certain rules. Likewise, it is naturally applied. No 2 persons in the world can have same fingerprints. Yes or no? If there is a twin, that means there are twin brothers. So their fingerprints are different. Their iris structure is different. Their heartbeat rate is different. This is the difference. This is the difference applied by nature. So nature follows that rule, uniqueness. So that rule we need to apply on the data that we are storing in our database. So applying that kind of rule on the data that we are creating in the database is nothing but enforcing constraints, so that the data should be consistent and it should be integrated. You will see this part in the coming lectures. Next thing is file manager. Responsibility for the structure of files and managing the file spaces rests with the file manager. Let's have a look in the diagram first, so that you will get the idea clear. Any kind of user can execute the command via query processor or DDL compiler that will be given to data manager. Data manager will execute logical format and create it in the physical format. Now the format is created in physical way. Now that physical format will be handed over to file manager, and it will be given from data manager to file manager. So whatever format is created by data manager will be handed over to file manager. File manager will allocate that much space according to the definition, and that file will be created, and that file will be passed on to operating system's disk manager, and disk manager will write the file into data files. We'll see. Responsibility for the structure of the files and managing the file spaces rests with the file manager. That means whatever definition was given by the user will be executed by the data manager from logical view to physical view, and that physical view will be passed on to file manager. Now file manager is responsible to allocate the exact spaces defined by data manager. That is, it is also responsible for locating the block containing the required record, requesting this block from the disk manager and transmitting the required record to the data manager. Okay, I will repeat the first line one more time. Responsibility for the structure of the files and managing the file spaces rests with the file manager. Whatever specification is given by the user will be created by data manager, and data manager will pass on that structure to file manager, and file manager will create that structure physically. That's it. After that, once the structure is stored on the disk, if the components stored in the disk are accessed by some user, see here the diagram. First of all, we are trying to create a table called student. User has given the command to create the table called student, and that command is handed over to data manager. Data manager allocated spaces for roll number, name, class, percent. 4 spaces, 4 columns are allocated, and the spaces for them is also allocated. Now that spaces will be passed on to file manager. File manager will actually create the file that can store roll number, name, class, and percent. Now that file is created, and that created file is transferred to disk manager. Disk manager will write the file to data files. Now file is created. Next time user is trying to access that file. Suppose when user executed the command select star from student, that command will be executed by query processor, passed on to data manager. Now data manager will ask file manager to look for the file called student, and file manager will take help of disk manager to search the file. Disk manager will search the file from the hard disk, pass it on to disk manager, and disk manager will pass it on to file manager. File manager will pass it on to data manager, and data manager will pass it on to user. And that is what we have said here. It is also responsible for locating the block containing the required record, requesting this block from the disk manager, and transmitting the required record to the data manager. That's it. That we have seen right now. The file manager can be implemented using an interface to the existing file subsystem provided by the operating system that we already have finished right now. Disk manager. Disk manager is part of operating system of the host computer. That means on which system we have installed the database. Database will be created. Database will create tables, and those tables will be stored on the disk. So the disk manager is under control of the operating system, and all physical input and output operations are performed by it. Disk manager transfers the block or page requested by the file manager so that the latter need not be concerned with the physical storage media. I will complete execution. Repeat one more time. When the user is trying to access the database, the user can access the database in two ways. First, for creating the objects, and second, for accessing the object. Let us try out creating the objects. User executed the command for creating table. Any user, that command will be assigned to DDL compiler, will pass on to data manager. Data manager will give it to file manager. File manager will pass it on to disk manager. You can see here, file manager could be of two types. Either it can belong to database management system or it can belong to operating system. That means that DBMS doesn't have file manager, operating system's file manager will be used. Okay. So whatever data is to be created will be stored on hard disk. Second time, when the user tries to access the information, that will be executed from query processor. Query processor will ask data manager to look for the file specified record. Data manager will ask for file manager to search the file. File manager will ask to disk manager to locate the file, and disk manager will actually go to the disk and locate the file, and the content will be obtained. After obtaining the content, it will be given back to file manager. File manager will give it back to data manager, and data manager will give it back to query processor, and query processor will hand it over to telecom system, and telecom system will pass it on to user. This is how structure of database management system works. Next point is query processor. I told you, if the user is executing a command of DDL category, that will be given to DDL compiler. If the user is executing the database using a programming language, the component will be transferred to the database using compile user interface and compile application interface. But if the user is executing a command which is not executed to DDL compiler or compile user interface, that means other commands apart from these two, neither from DDL compiler nor from compiled format, that will be given to query processor. There are multiple types of SQL commands: DDL, DML, DQL, DCL, TCL. So DDL commands will be handed over to DDL compiler, and rest 4 category of commands will be handed over to query processor. The query processor is used to interpret the online user's query and convert it into an efficient series of operations in a form capable of being sent to the data manager for execution. Simple, it will process the query, as simple as that. Query processor uses data dictionary to find the structure of relevant portion of the database and uses this information in modifying the query and preparing an optimal plan to access the database. This second point is a bit complicated to understand at this moment. We will execute this part in the coming lectures. For now, you should get it clear. Query processor is executing for rest of commands apart from DDL category that will be converted into the format understood by data manager and handed over to database management system. Telecommunication system, any user either user who is accessing the database directly or using it from a remote machine. Those users who are accessing the database are called online users. Online means it is not related with internet part. Online users means those who are accessing the database at the moment. Okay, so it could be on the local machine or it could be from a remote machine. Online users of a computer system, whether remote or local, communicate with it by sending and receiving messages over communication lines. So whatever commands which are executed by the user side will be transferred to the database system using telecom system. After passing the commands, if there are some messages from the database management system, that will be converted back to the user again with the help of telecom system. Data files. In the database part, what actual data we are storing? Whatever data we are storing in the database is actually stored on a physical file called data files. Okay, so whatever data we are creating in the database should be stored physically on a file called data files, and those data files are created on hard disk. So this is the physical file structure that we use to store our database. Data files contain data portion of the database. That means the actual data that we are storing in the system, database system, that will be stored on data files. Data dictionary. The information pertaining to the structure and usage of data contained in the database, that is metadata. See, I told you, actual data that we are storing in the database is stored on data files. Now, the data file might have some size. So, from the available size, how much size have you utilized and how much size is free for use? I will repeat the point one more time. Whatever data we are trying to store in the database is stored on data files. So that data file should be having a specific size. From the size allocated to the data, from the size allocated to the data files, how much space is actually used and how much space is free. This information should be maintained. So that is nothing but data about data. How much space is used from the data file and how much space is free in the data file. So data file related data is nothing but data about data. That is called metadata. So all these kinds of metadata is stored in data dictionary. The term system catalog also describes this metadata. Data dictionary, which is database itself, documents the data. So this is how the complete execution of database works. Hope you have understood the concepts of structure of database management system.